Imagine a world without money. No coins jingling in your pocket, no bills, no credit cards, no digital wallets. A world where wealth isn't counted, traded, or stored because the very idea of money never existed. Sounds peaceful or terrifying. Let's find out what our world would really look like if money had never been invented. Before money, people traded through barter, exchanging one good for another. You had wheat, I had cattle. But what if humanity had never moved beyond that system? At first, it might sound fair, trading what you have for what you need. But think deeper. Without a standard of value, trade becomes painfully inefficient. How do you trade a cow for a house? Or pay for surgery with a basket of apples? Economies would have stayed local and tiny. Cities, industry, and even nations as we know them might never have formed. Because money wasn't just a currency, it was the foundation of civilization's growth. Without money, the Industrial Revolution would never have happened. Machines cost resources. Labor needs compensation. Without a way to store and measure value, global trade collapses before it even begins. Every invention, from airplanes to smartphones, relies on capital investment. Without money, there's no way to invest, no funding, no profit. Imagine a world frozen in pre-industrial times. No skyscrapers. No cars. No internet. Just small communities surviving on trade and trust. The modern world erased. Governments are built on economics. Taxes fund armies, schools, and infrastructure. But without money, how do you tax citizens? In rice? In sheep? Leaders couldn't sustain large populations without a shared system of value. Nations as we know them might not exist. Instead, the world would likely be divided into tribal confederations, each self-reliant, isolated, and constantly negotiating for survival. Diplomacy would be endless. Wars would be fought not for power, but for resources, food, water, and land, just like prehistoric times. Humans always find a way to create hierarchy, so even if money never existed, power would. Maybe people would trade status, influence, or labor instead of coins. Those with rare skills, healers, builders, or leaders, would become the elite. Social inequality wouldn't disappear. It would just take another form. Instead of billionaires, we'd have chiefs, priests, or elders controlling resources. The concept of wealth would still exist, but measured in respect, reputation, or favors. In this world, the phrase social credit becomes literal. People would owe each other not dollars, but debt and loyalty. Money drives ambition, greed, and innovation, but also charity, cooperation, and dreams. Remove it, and you change human psychology itself. Without money, motivation would rely on social reward rather than profit. Creativity might focus on community benefit, not commercial success. But large-scale innovation would slow because no one could fund big ideas. Artists might create for love, not fame. Scientists might share discoveries freely, but struggle to gather materials. Human progress would move slower, but maybe it would feel more human. Let's imagine we somehow advanced into a semi-modern world, but still without money. We need a global barter network powered by trust and technology. AI or blockchain could track trades, assigning value without currency. It might look like this. You offer your skill as a teacher to a farmer who grows food for a doctor who heals your child in return. A circle of exchange perfectly balanced. But even with AI managing fairness, one question remains. Who decides what's worth more, a life saved or a house built? Without money, value becomes emotional, subjective, and dangerous. Conflicts could erupt not over greed, but over perception of worth. At first, crime rates might drop. No money means no robbery, no fraud, no corruption, right? Not quite. Greed doesn't disappear, it evolves. People might steal resources instead, food, medicine, tools. Wars could be fought over necessity, not luxury. The black market wouldn't vanish. It would just trade in different goods. Powerful groups might control scarce resources, exploiting weaker communities. Ironically, without money, humanity could become more violent, not less. Here's something deeper. Money influences relationships too. Without it, marriage, family, and friendship would all change. Love might seem more genuine, no material motives. But survival pressures could destroy romance entirely. People might choose partners based on skills and resource value, not emotion. Imagine marrying not for love, but for survival, because your partner can farm, hunt, or heal. society becomes practical, but loses part of its soul. No money, no capitalism, no corporations. Tech giants like Apple, Google, or SpaceX wouldn't exist. Without profit incentives, innovation would rely solely on collective curiosity. We might still have technology, but created by small groups, not global industries. The progress would be slower, more fragmented, and localized. Even communication would differ. There would be no advertising, no sponsorships, no influencers. The internet might exist purely as a tool of knowledge, a digital library, not a marketplace. Strangely, this world would be purer, but also far less advanced. Some argue a moneyless world could force humanity to unite. Without financial borders, everyone would rely on mutual survival. Maybe global cooperation would replace capitalism. Imagine a world governed by resource councils. Scientists, environmentalists, and philosophers managing distribution fairly. It sounds utopian until scarcity returns. Then, the same human instincts, greed, fear, dominance, would resurface, tearing unity apart. Without money as a neutral medium, trust becomes the new currency. And trust, unlike money, is fragile. In some ways, parts of this world already exist. Digital bartering communities, sharing economies, and open-source movements hint at what a moneyless future might look like. Platforms like time banks or community trade apps let people exchange skills and services without cash. But these systems work only because money exists in the background, as a safety net, a reference point, a measure of fairness. Without it entirely, the system would eventually collapse, because people still need something universal to trust. Money is often blamed for evil, corruption, greed, exploitation. But the truth is, money itself is neutral. It's merely a symbol of trust, a shared illusion that keeps 8 billion people cooperating. If we removed money, the world wouldn't become fair, it would become unpredictable. The poor wouldn't suddenly thrive, the rich wouldn't instantly vanish. They'd simply be replaced by a new form of power. Maybe control over food, maybe knowledge, maybe access to information. Now close your eyes. Imagine walking through a world without prices, salaries, or shopping malls. You wake up, work for your community, and trade what you can offer. There are no taxes, no debts, no billionaires. But also, no safety nets, no investments, no hospitals funded by government money. Humanity becomes small again, connected by survival, not ambition. Peaceful, maybe, but fragile? So, what would happen if the world never invented money? We might gain simplicity, but lose civilization. We might escape greed, but also progress. Because money, in all its flaws, gave humans something no barter ever could, a shared dream of growth. Without it, we'd still be trading apples for shoes and the stars? We'd still be staring at them, not reaching for them. If this thought experiment made you think differently about the world, make sure to subscribe because next time we're exploring another impossible question. What if gravity suddenly disappeared for 10 seconds?